Hello, Nicole here again, and today I'm going to talk about Flood Aqueduct and how you can use it with Flood. We developed Aqueduct in response to the many requests we got from customers wanting to use Flood for their internal applications. Aqueduct creates tunnels that allow you to flood applications that are not publicly reachable, such as the ones behind a corporate firewall. Flood Aqueduct actually consists of two separate solutions. Aqueduct VPN is a managed VPN service, which allows Tricentis Flood to peer with customer-provided VPN gateways to their own network. This requires configuration from both Flood and customer representatives at the network level. Aqueduct SSL, on the other hand, is a simple proprietary binary developed by Tricentis Flood that customers can run from their own local machine. This makes it easy for customers to spin up their own self-serviced, SSL-based tunnels to flood grids, allowing only HTTP and HTTPS traffic to be generated. Today I'm going to talk you through how to set up Aqueduct SSL for use with Flood. The instructions that we're going through in this video will also be covered in this step-by-step guide in written form. Check the description of this video for the link to this guide, as well as some other resources on Aqueduct. Step 1. Make sure the internal application is running and accessible. The first thing you'll need is, of course, an internal application to test against. This is the web server that I'm running from my local machine. And if you already have one, you can test your access to it by just using a curl command. In this case, I've used ecorp.dev, but this is the specific URL that I've set up my web application with. So you'll have to change that to your application's URL. My web app is responding. It's not a very smart one, but it is responding, so we're all set to go to the next step. Step 2. Install Aqueduct. To install Aqueduct, click on this link to a more detailed installation guide. To start with, you're going to download the binaries for the platform that you're using, and there may be a few things that you have to run as well. But we're going to jump straight into checking your installation. To check your installation, you can always type Aqueduct version. If you get something like this, that means Flood Aqueduct is correctly installed on your computer. Step 3. Link Aqueduct to your Flood account. Go ahead and log into Flood, click on your profile picture on the upper right-hand corner here, and then click on API Access. Click on Reveal Token and copy this token because you're going to need it in the next step. Go back to your terminal and type in Aqueduct configure. In this case, I had already entered my Flood token, but if you haven't, and this is your first time to configure Aqueduct, you can simply paste your Flood token in here and hit enter. After checking that the token is valid, you can then use the up and down arrow keys to select which region you want to run as the default for your tunnel. So I'm going to select EU West 3, which is actually Paris. Step 4. Create a tunnel. Now it's time to actually create the tunnel. To do that, we're going to type aqueduct target and then the URL of your application. Hit enter and you should see something like this. It may take a few minutes because what's happening here is that Flood's actually creating a node in the cloud for you. That specific node will be your tunnel. After a few minutes, you should get this confirmation that the container is up, and that means your tunnel is ready. Step 5. Create a grid in the same region as your tunnel. Now it's time to launch your grid in Flood. From the grid screen, click on Launch Grid. For the AWS region, make sure that you select a grid in the same region that you used for your tunnel. So in this case, I chose Paris, so I'm going to go with that. Click Continue through these messages here, and I'm going to click Launch Grid. Step 6. Create a hosts file for the grid node. In the meantime, while this grid is starting up, we're going to need to create a hosts file that we'll be able to upload to this grid so that it knows how to resolve the URL of our application. To do that, we're going to need the IP address of this tunnel that we've created. I'm going to type in aqueduct status, which will bring up all of the tunnels that are currently running. So this is the tunnel that we just created, and as you can see, it's in EU West and will be active for another 56 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and copy this IP address, and then in a text editor, we're going to type in this line and then paste in the IP address of the tunnel. We're going to be able to upload this hosts file onto the grid node so that it knows that whenever we fire off a request to ecorp.dev, it will know to forward those requests to our tunnel. Save this file as .hosts. Step 7. Write your load testing script. In this example, I'm using JMeter, but you could use any load test tool that Flood supports. You can also download this JMeter sample script in the step-by-step guide that's linked in the description below. The important thing here is in the request that you're sending, you're going to need to make sure that the protocol is HTTP and that you're not specifying a port number. Once you've saved that, it's time to run it in Flood. Step 8. Run your test on Flood. Our grid has now been completely started, so let's go into Streams and create a new one. So I've just selected the JMeter tool, and I'm going to name this ecorp tutorial. Click Continue, and I'm going to select the JMX file that we created and the hosts file, and just drag it over to the test scripts. I will click Continue, select JMeter as the tool. Let's just run 10 users since this is just on my local machine. Click Continue and make sure to select that grid in Paris that we started. It's time to launch the test. And that's it. You are now running a load test of 10 users against an application that exists solely on your local machine using Flood and Flood Aqueduct. For more detailed instructions as well as a copy of the sample script I use in this tutorial, check out the links in the description below.